So thanks for joining us today. And in our panel discussion today, what we hope to do is to actually deepen a lot of the things that the teams have been discussing earlier. And like Aditi had put it, we know that AI in software development is no longer an adoption problem. It's actually, how do you actually measure the impact? And how are you able to leverage all of this in your software development lifecycle at your organization? So I want to throw some numbers at you. I promise that's the last time I will do, and you'll see that today. But so I think some of the research that we've seen so far, so I think we saw the DORA State of AI Software Development research have said that 90% of organization and correspondents actually use AI in all of the things that they do, or in the things that they do on a day-to-day basis. But, and 80% of them actually find it useful and they find some productivity gain. Actually, if you look further into the 80%, you'll see that 72% actually found only a moderate improvement on the productivity gain. So again, I think that's quite consistent with what we're finding, right? So with the amount of code that's being generated, there's more debugging that needs to be done. There is security and vulnerability that needs to be come in place, more refactoring, and then the rest of your development lifecycle in terms of requirement testing and all of that. Are you able to catch up with the code that's being generated? So I think we all know that the question of is it a hype or not? Aditi, you helped me answer it already. So we know it's no longer hype, but how, as with anything new, we have to experiment, we learn, and we apply the learning and iterate, and then we can then improve ourselves. So thank you for joining the panel discussion today, and maybe I can start with you, Chris. So in your talk, you talk a lot about software, the software development and how you use AI, but what actually have you seen worked well, and what kind of tasks do you use AI to perform, and how does it? What impact does it have?
Yeah, so just to currently my role is on the lead. So I normally taking care of more of high-level problems, architecture and stuff. But I still find it AI. For me, I use a lot of AI when doing POCs and also in some of my side projects. And I find it. When it comes to building the proof of concept, I think it's very fascinating. I used to need 2 or more days to build some POC, and now it takes maybe 1 hour, which is super good.
Yeah.
And that is why I think it very works well. What's another question again?
Yeah. So I think maybe those things work well, but maybe what have you seen not work well then?
Oh, yeah, but I think what I have seen not really work well, that's a few. So I think it's the same that I talk when I try to give AI a very, very big task or try to give AI a lot of information and try to consider everything 100 page here and make this problem based on this 100-page consideration. It's very fall through, and I think it's tied back into fundamental structure of LLM, where if you give it too many contexts, it breaks. And that's, I think, as long as LLM architecture is still transformer, encoder, and things like this, that problem will still remain for the rest of the, even the future of LLM.
Okay. And maybe similar question to Chia-Yi, because you also use AI a lot in your day-to-day work as well. So in what scenario do you use, and what have you seen worked well and not worked well?
I'm a data scientist, so I do a lot of actual development on a day-to-day. So I use it for big picture thinking, where I try to structure how am I going to code this application out, what are the modules that I need, and after I get this entire picture or architecture of what I'm trying to build, then I use it to fill in the blanks where I'll code specific functions. So that is typically how I use AI. And what has not worked well, I agree with what Chris has said. If you give it too much information, it will just stray. And what works is you break your task down into specific like mini features for them to implement, and you do it incrementally, and you can consistently review to see whether they are on the right track or not. And what has not worked well, I would say, don't make the rookie mistake of like letting agent mode and just like let it go wild on its own, because from personal experiences, they actually do run command lines within your terminals, and sometimes if you don't pay attention, they could delete things that you really do need. So it's very important for you to keep a strong lookout for what your agent is actually doing.
Yeah, very good lesson. I think you mentioned big picture, and this is one I want to also double click into, because I think you spoke about the architecture, the ADR, and the architectural suggestion. Can you or can you not trust AI? And this is where what do you think? What do you think AI in handling the big picture thinking?
Okay, so that's an interesting question, because I think to preface, I think AI helps. I design architecture for clients, right? And AI helps me a lot in designing, but maybe in not a way that we are totally do big picture thinking. So we are thinking about architecture design. I think there's a tool, at least I can break down into 2 steps, right? So the first step is to decide, to understand. By design, I mean understand the right trade-off based on context. And that's where I need to gather, talk to stakeholders. Someone complain about cost, someone complain about reliability. Take all that information and, okay, this organization, you need to tune up the performance, maybe tune down cost, but maybe we can make a little bit more complex, because they can handle that. And that part, I call it design, and I don't think AI can help with that part yet. But when I get all that information and I need to find, hey, based on this, what kind of architectural patterns that I can apply to serve these trade-offs. That's why I think AI helped me a lot in explore existing architectural patterns that in industry. I asked AI around, hey, if I want to do asynchronous communication, what kind of technology stack is currently exist? What kind of patterns or common language that I can use to communicate? I think that part really helps me when I design architecture.
Okay, that's a good tip. Going to you, Wenbo. You spoke a lot about working with teams, rolling out AI and leveraging AI in their day-to-day practice. What is your approach to rolling out AI in your team?
Right. So I think this is a very important question, right? So everyone wants to introduce more AI capability into the team, but how to start is very important. So my approach is, or before going to my approach, I think one of the most important thing is the team needs to have an open mind to accept AI. So some teams have seen as they don't trust AI, so by default they will, or they don't want to leverage AI to change their existing behaviors. So the open mind is very important. So if the team accept AI, then the next step is about how to introduce AI to the team. So usually my approach is to not use AI to change their existing working flow, but to leverage AI to augment or strengthen their existing flows. For example, to introduce a new idea or run a new experiment in the team and give them an actual use case. For example, your project manager is running problem on Spring analysis. Here is an example or an idea about how AI can help you to analyze the data. Can you spend some time together with your project manager and build something fast and dirty, but leveraging AI fast. And if they see the value in the team, and they will more and more open or willing to do more experiments on different AI approaches. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, what you mentioned about ensuring that the team's open-minded and then identify a specific use case for the team. But then as you progress, are there indicators or measures that you're looking at in order to see if actually this is a working experiment, or the decision of should I roll it out further, should I shrink back? What are you looking for in those cases?
Right. So definitely the ultimate goal is to build a shared or scalable solution for AI to support different use cases. So each experiments running in different teams are very valuable assets. So we will usually do regular assessment meetings or updates about how they are going, what values we can see from the experiments, is that shareable, is that scalable, what's the feedback from the client, do they see the value there? Yes. If everything goes well, we will also organize a showcase to the client, to multiple different clients. Oh, this is running, the experiments are running now. It helps different teams to achieve different business goals. And do you want to give it a try? And if yes, this is the shareable assets or the guidance for you to adopt a similar approach in the team.
Okay, cool, thank you. Over to you, Aditi. So I think you mentioned, you are at that intersection where something has been successful, and now, people, organizations want to scale AI across their organization for software development. From your perspective, what are the things that what are the readiness indicators that you look out for when you go in and consult and talk to organizations when they want to do this?
Yeah. So I think, so in my role, I will usually talk to clients who want to adopt AI as a strategy or want to bring that into their processes and to their systems. So typically what I would look at when we go in for our first conversations, when we are just understanding what the client needs, I guess the first thing that's important for an organization, I would think, is, again, the engineering foundations.
Yeah.
So if there is already lack of developer effectiveness, if there is lack of tooling, and the client is in the mindset that actually AI is going to solve that problem, then a big part of that is coaching them through that journey. So yeah, I would definitely see that in terms of AI readiness, having your strong engineering foundations, your operating model sorted, your architecture sorted are probably the key things to start with. The second thing that I would also maybe think about is in terms of goal of actually adopting AI.
Yeah.
Like sometimes I meet clients and they're like, okay, we know that this is the hype or this is what every other organization is doing, so we want to bring it in. But usually that's not a good recipe for success. You want to define, if the client has actually thought through where the gaps, the bottlenecks in the system are, then as an organization you can have a stronger AI strategy, because then you are after a goal versus after just implementing co-pilots or cursor in your organization. So yeah, I think first would be the engineering readiness, but also making sure that there is some strategic alignment as to why AI is being brought into the organization, given their business goals and just general productivity concerns. And maybe the last one I would think is maybe similar to Wenbo, like just what's the culture of the organization? Because AI is like a new thing that many people understand but are also scared of. So if you have a culture of experimentation, of not blaming the person who generated some code, and then do not have that right psychological safety, then I think maybe AI readiness is not there for that organization.
Yeah.
So thinking about how culturally we can adopt tools, but at the same time make sure that the new tools will bring some risk, both from a security as well as a people point of view. I think so these three aspects maybe are critical at a high level for us to make sure that, okay, this organization is ready to experiment with AI and more importantly might be able to see some real benefits.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. I think the experimentation part is important, but then we also have to look at experimenting responsibly as well. So going over to you, Chia-Yi, you've had a lot of experience working with safety testing, responsible AI, and when it comes to coding LLMs and utilizing AI across the software development lifecycle, what are the issues and potential risks that you see, and what are the mitigations that you can recommend?
When it comes to responsible AI, I would say there is a whole wide spectrum of what aspects there are to it. So I mean, to name a few, there's like safety, security, which everyone is very familiar with, but there's also like privacy, transparency, fairness, explainability, yada yada. The list goes on.
Yeah.
So I would say that for coding assistance, most of the people are still focusing on the safety and security aspect, which I mean, to be fair, that is the biggest issue then. So I believe the talks in the morning will have also highlighted some of the security risks that could happen if you use coding assistance. And with agents, we do see that it opens up a can of worms, right? You now have MCPs. You can connect your AI coding assistant to so many different applications to your production database. So there's a lot of risk that comes with it. And what's most important is that the developer should know what are the risks associated with it to make sure that they are aware of what they are doing. And we should always keep human in the loop. Yeah, so that's my biggest take. Sorry, what was the second question?
No, around the mitigation of these risks.
Right.
So,
when it comes to mitigation, the first one would be definitely human in the loop, because that is before the AI is executed. But let's say something actually does slip out of the radar. What you can do is you can do a post-mortem where you run some automated code checkers. It checks for vulnerabilities in your codes, whether they have imported packages that they should not have been, whether they are using outdated packages that are compromised. So it is possible to do a post-mortem analysis, but I would say just like every other guardrail in LLMs, it's never 100%. You can stack multiple different defenses together, but there will still be a very small minority of cases that may slip through. And this is why you should assess the risk level and whether it's acceptable in your use case.
Yeah. And so I think you also do a lot of safety testing for LLM as well. Yes. So do these apply to coding assistants as well? And how would you?
So coding assistance is especially difficult to test because when it comes to testing a chatbot, it's quite easy. Input, output. I'll test whether your output, the text that's generating out of the chatbot, is it considered safe or not. But when it comes to coding assistant, it can generate a very safe piece of code for you. But at the same time, its agentic controls can delete the entire database for you. And the output is safe, but every intermediate step along the way is not safe. So in that case, then the question comes to how do you then test an agentic system? So it is currently still a very nascent field, I would say. A lot of research is in this area. Can we formalize a framework? Can we actually, understand how safe or unsafe an agentic system is? So so our team is actually trying to experiment with this aspect as well. From some of the early insights that I have is that what you have in studies and what you can replicate in your own organization when it comes to POCs, you won't be able to apply them as of now because most of the coding assistants that you use are out of the box. You're using it from a software company. They won't allow you to deep dive into the thinking logs of the agent. So currently, this is still a very underexplored area. I do see potential in the future, but that's the current state as it is.
Cool. Thank you for sharing. And just going back into the the coding side of thing as well. There was one question for Wenbo from our audience, it's so it goes like this. I have a feeling that AI is driving people away from TDD. So we spoke about engineering practices and guardrails. What do you think?
Yeah. So first of all, TDD is a hard thing. Not everyone's using TDD in their daily work. 100% sure about that. But if the developer is proficient on TDD already, then I don't think AI is driving him or them away from TDD. Yeah. Because AI can accelerate the speed of generating the test before writing code. They already have the mindset, so it shouldn't be a problem. But for the people not using TDD, they are more familiar with writing code first. So AI, I think it's also a good chance for them to try TDD as well, because in this case, writing unit tests before the, how to say, without the knowledge of the code is, you can delegate this thinking to AI, so it's not a human challenge.
Yeah.
So AI can do that better than the person who don't do TDD, right? So it's a very good chance to start TDD in this case. But actually, if the team are not willing to try this, it is still okay. But as what I said in the sharing, we might need to pay more attention on the unit test qualities to confirm if it is only testing for the code logic or it's testing for the business.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And I just remember talking with somebody with Thoughtworks as well. In our experience with our development team is that if you write tests first, the code that gets generated by the coding assistants is actually cleaner and more modularized according to the test. So that's also the other benefit as well, right? So, Chris, I saw you itching to say something.
Yeah. Because the conversation remind me of like I have conversation around this event as well, and so when we write code with AI, right? I think many people is trying to ask, okay, how can I make my code become more correct by having a more better prompt? And I think it's drive the practice in the wrong direction, because you cannot really control which part of your document that AI pay attention to. So let's say that there's a simple problem where you have some architectural structures and you want to make sure that the AI code still conform to that architecture. And sometimes AI might break some of the topics, right? Some of the bullet points. So one thing you can do is you can say, this point is very important, don't forget this. And it might drive attention to that a little bit, but then it will break another point. So only way to make sure that the code is still conform is actually to have tests. And in that way, even when the AI break, one thing that we can do is ask to repeatedly test and refine. And that is the only way to guarantee that the code production still conform to architecture. So I think when the question comes in that AI might drive the software development further away from test, to me, I feel the opposite, because it's really drive the importance of automate test even more further. It's not really drive away. But I think somehow in our industry, we might have the wrong impression that only way to improve quality of AI produced is by writing better prompt. I don't think that is the case. Yeah, I think that's a good point. And there's another very good question here as well. Because while we're talking about test and validation, I thought it would be good to cover this as well. So how do you look at the role of validation in the process of define, break down, and choose trade-off? Okay, so I think I don't have the full answer to that, but I think in my experience, I would say that I normally focus validation on either, so first define the problems, right? That part, I think, because normally speaking, it's very, very hard to get the clear requirement, and that's why Agile even come from in the first place. So I try to still work in iterative, which means that I am okay with a vague requirement, produce it, and see the feedback. So the validation of the define happen in the end, which is, I think it's okay. Yeah. But then when it comes to breakdown, so I look at the plan or the middle step, see if it's going well. I also try to make sure, and then we have a bunch of small solvable problems, right? And all of those, I always make sure that we have test covers. That's how I validate that.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So before we go to Aditi, I just have one more question from the audience that's quite interesting as well. Just staying in the coding space, right? So when you look at integration with IDEs, what are the seamless integration characteristics that you are looking for when leveraging LLM?
All right. Well, so definitely I want the code assistant to access to as much as resource as possible. For example, Jira, Confluence, Miro.
Yep.
And so one of the observation I had in my project is people are much more keen to use the tool that integrates with their most used IDE.
Yeah.
Compares to like providing a separate tool, a different website to provide similar functions. So the integration is very, I think it's a key driver for the team to adopt multiple tools.
Yeah.
So MCP is a good approach to connect to Jira, Confluence, but also sometimes myself and the team also write our own local tools for prompts to use to access to other tools which doesn't have MCP connections.
Yeah.
Oh, I would also like to add on. I think what's important is also the user interface and the user experience. So I think when I first started out, I started using Cursor, which I was quite used to the user interface. And when I started using CLI coding tools like maybe Cloud Code or Codex, I couldn't really get used to this new way of coding, because you now have to approve every single block of code before they will generate the next one for you. Yep. But I do notice that is how you make a developer more responsible, because they are now forced to review every code at every generation instead of generating like 10 prompts and then checking the entire code base. Yeah. So for that, I would say I still prefer CLI coding assistance. So that's one tip that I would have.
That's a very good one. Your user experience forces the behavior.
Yes.
Awesome. So going over to you, Aditi, you mentioned that bonus pattern that you shared during your session. And AI in legacy modernization is definitely something that we're seeing a lot in our clients. Can you just maybe give some example of the cases where it's been used? How has it been used effectively, and what do you think need to be in place in order for it to be used?
Yeah, sure. I think, as I said, like most of the time, a lot of the hype we are seeing is around generating new code. But I think there's like value to see it the other way, where how can you use it to understand some of your legacy code and try and reverse engineer it. So as I was sharing earlier, legacy code, legacy systems are a big problem for a lot of organizations. If you don't have that problem, you're probably lucky. But yeah, it's a very common problem and something that more and more clients are trying to see if with Gen AI they can try and resolve it. So in the past, legacy modernization would have typically taken a long time, or it would also not be possible in some cases if there's actually no domain knowledge left about that system or the code is really inaccessible. But I think with newer tooling, we are seeing that we can actually, even in cases where direct code is not available, we are able to reverse engineer the legacy code to actually get some insights. So I would say the use cases that we are majorly seeing is definitely around reverse engineering, which means just understanding, as I said, the language that are no longer used, being able to unpack that and try to understand what's in that code. So I think that's definitely a strong area that we are seeing it work well. The other is also in just generating the dependency graphs and the capability maps from this code. Because in the past, I remember I've been on modernization strategy engagements where we will try and unpack what the domain of the client is, try to map out the capabilities that exist in these older systems. And it takes significant amount of time, and a lot of people have to be engaged to understand. And sometimes we still have to go and validate that in the actual system by triggering some of the requests. So I think now with some of these tooling, like Code Concise is one of them that you can read more about online, but that the idea there is that it can actually look at your code and transform and identify some of the interdependencies and capabilities, which then accelerate your modernization journey, because now you sort of can look at these capabilities from a business lens and be like, oh, actually these 5 of them I no longer need. or I'm no longer, or they are duplicated across this system, for you to then start to forward engineer. So while we are seeing legacy modernization, we are also seeing that now this capability map is readily available, actually accelerating how I write my future code as well. So this reverse engineering is actually directly contributing to forward engineering as well. But I think more importantly, it's actually has removed the human bottleneck that we had on some of the systems. Like my current client also has like a really old core banking system that I think only 60 folks probably understand. It's proprietary to one of the regions they operate in. And I think these kind of systems, there's a lot of risk that any organization is carrying when they have this kind of a system and it's a critical part of their flow. So I think with Gen AI, it's still in initial stages. We have seen good promise in terms of reducing the reverse engineering time with some of the tooling that we use. But it's definitely one area that we are seeing clients explore because it's that one solution that maybe did not exist so far when it comes to legacy modernization. So yeah, I think those are the main use cases that I'm seeing. In terms of like what needs to be there to be able to get value from these tools, I think I would definitely like to caution that it's not that you can point your cursor or your chat GPT to the code. Like that's not how it works, right? So you really need to figure out what your existing code is, how can you translate that into some kind of knowledge graph. So you need some kind of parsers first before you can throw this code into LLM, right? You cannot just take your COBOL code and put it into LLMs. You have to have some basic parsing, basic knowledge graph built out before LLM can start analyzing it. And you also need to provide LLM with more context about your systems, about your business, so that it's able to make the linkages while it's reverse engineering the code that you have provided. So I think there are a few steps. It's not as simple as, okay, I just have a big code base and I give it to a AI tool. I just want to caution against that. But yes, there is like some maturity we are seeing where long lines of codes we have managed to accelerate how quick we can understand that now. So those are some of the things to think about when you're thinking about legacy modernization.
Cool. Thank you.
Can I add something here?
Of course, go for it.
I think the similar tools or technologies is not only can be used for legacy modernizations, it also can be used for legacy operating as well. So in my current client, you have a big project with over 700 sub-projects inside. So if you're using Cursor, Copilot, or whatever tools directly on that code base, the context is easily exploded, and so you will never get any like useful answer from the Cursor. So using similar approach, have a graph, maintain your vector database. So the cursor, you can use prompts or tools to connect to that tool to retrieve like more specific information. So the code assistant tool can retrieve precisely about the knowledge you need. So it can manage the tool can manage to operate in this big code base.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for a large code base, I think context on one side of the code, like that bounded context can be overlapping, and the LLM can easily get confused between them. So I think you're right. The graph is the one that can really help. Over to you, Chai. So I think we spoke a lot about leveraging AI toolings and improving productivity. And so I think in the quest to improve productivity, we may forego safety, security, and so on. What are your view around how can we, as an organization, put this in so that there is that guardrails for developers when they start leveraging these kind of toolings from an organizational level?
I think it's important for every organization to at least have a sensing of some technical governance that they would like to do when it comes to AI. And there are actually a lot of existing frameworks or risk taxonomy out there, but I do believe that every organization should be aware of the risk, especially when you're adopting AI. It doesn't even have to be coding assistance. It can be anything, like maybe email writing. There are definitely some risks associated with that. And it's important for us to identify them, know what are the potential mitigations possible, and for everyone to be aligned with that. So I mean, within the public sector, there are definitely guidelines of what we should do and what we should not do. But when it comes to private companies, I believe the same should be applied as well, where there should be a top-down notification of what is accepted and what is considered too risky.
Can I add to that?
Of course, please.
So yeah, just want to add that a little bit, but it's more about, because in Thoughtworks, we have the publication named Thoughtworks Technology Radar. I'm one of the members who curate that. And if I'm looking for some tips, I know that this volume that we're going to publish in around 2 or 3 weeks is have few frameworks or few tools that you can use around security. But yeah, it's going there. I cannot spoil right now, but it's coming.
Okay, so it's your marketing for your publication.
Yes.
Cool. All right. So
let me add one more thing. So
yes, of course.
I think one of my key principle on the security part of leveraging AI shares the similar standard of the security we are doing in the code in the coding. So the key thing is we never save personal information or identity information to the code base, and we don't save plain text of the credentials or the passwords. So similar standard applies in AI, so we never apply those informations to AI.
Yeah.
So sometimes when we using MCP to connect to productions and get data, make sure your MCP masks the credentials or the PII data from the returning. Yeah.
Yep, cool. Thank you. And I think we've got a lot of questions coming in from the audience. So let's get into the audience question. So to Wenbo, I think you talk about educating your junior developers. So can you go a little bit further into how do you guide your junior engineers on AI usage, particularly around regarding balancing over-reliance on AI, and how do they build up that firm foundations?
This is still a hard problem to me. Yeah. So every junior is willing to rely on AI 100%. Because it's much more easier for them, and it's easier to pass the probation, easier to pass the code review from the seniors. So they get much more a value demonstrated by leveraging AI. So it is the situation. We cannot change. But what we did is to, first of all, we need to consistently and regularly give feedback to juniors on when and why you should use AI in different situations. For example, in the clinical training, it's not the place for you to use AI. But in the story writings, definitely you can use AI. But in the same time, we apply different standard for you compared to the seniors, because they already knows what is a good code. But you, besides of the code generation, you need to explain what the pattern this code is using, no matter the pattern is from yourself or from AI, but you need to explain to me.
Yeah.
And also, if I'm using, I need to review your prompts. Is that structured at the beginning, especially at the very first beginning prompts of the conversation? Is that structured? What information you provided? Have you considered any guardrails in the prompts? So. So we are not only evaluate the code output from the grads, but also consider about how they thinking and how they working together with AI. And also we have different prompts, for example, pairing mode or TDD mode, especially for grads to choose to make sure they are not only generate and accept.
Yeah.
Can I add to that?
Yeah.
So I used to do one advisory/enablement project for the client, and there was an engineer who's really reliant on AI. And this is the part where I need to bring psychology in a little bit. So in the psychology, right, in the smallest unit of responsibility that one can do is to ask to make a choice. So when I implement in real life, what I did with that engineer is that, okay, you have an AI code, generate code. you bring it to me, and I found that he's too reliant on AI. So I asked him, can you give me another solution? So now he needs to give me 2 solutions. And I asked him, what do you think is better? Can you choose it for me? And I think from the psychology perspective, that is the way that you can make your teammate be more responsible in the smallest form with it. Choose one over the one, but this is your choice.
Yeah.
Can I also quickly add on that I believe that we should embrace this change. I mean, back in the days, right, when calculator first came out, what do people think about it? They'd be like, oh, do we will we forget how to do differentiation or integration, right? So there are those kind of concerns, but I believe that we will embrace this change quite gracefully. And even now, like big tech firms, they're actually using AI and they're evaluating whether you are able to use AI in your coding interviews. So it kind of shows like the push for AI coding development. It will be the new normal and we should all embrace it.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think that brings us up to the end of our panel discussion. I know that we haven't been able to cover all of the questions, but please come to us. We'll be around, and we can have further discussion. I know there were some around modernization. Aditi, you'll be around as well, right? So we can talk through. And thank you so much for the panels, for sharing your view. And let's go for lunch. Thank you.
Great.